a post-MCU all-star superhero team-up game that just has a ton of good things going for it, potentially ruined by two things: limited exclusive release on an underpowered console, and an in-game camera so bad that it could bring a grown nerd to tears. Welcome to completion number 94 of the Potato Backlog Project. If you're curious about Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, I have a video about that as well on the channel. Go check it out. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video for the Thanos snap of rating systems, the Tater Raider, and let's talk about Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order. There is a 10-year gap between the release of Ultimate Alliance 2 and The Black Order. A new developer was given the chance to make another entry into the series, and the game was made exclusively for the Nintendo Switch and released in 2019. Heavily influenced by the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ultimate Alliance 3 feels like a game very far away from the first two entries in the series. Not only are there no references or links to the events that took place in the first two games, they have the Sam Jackson Nick Fury present in Ultimate Alliance 3. While I do love his version of Nick Fury, it feels weird that this is the third entry into the series, and the first two had the old comic book style Nick Fury. Kind of feels like that means this game didn't need to have a 3 in the title, because it's more of a reboot or alternate universe than a sequel to what came before it, which I would be fine with if they just took a couple minutes off the start and set that up or explain that a little bit. That weirdness aside, there are a lot of great things going on with Ultimate Alliance 3. They build off of what the first two games started gameplay wise, added a ton of great new characters and villains, a brand new visual style with new team-up mechanics, and crazy new super moves and abilities added to all the characters. But the Black Order ends up dropping the ball of balls with what I consider one of the worst in-game cameras since I played the Soulsborne games. If you've played through this game single player, you will know what I mean, but you might be a little more forgiving because of all the other good things the game has going for it. Try playing this game couch co-op multiplayer. You'll then wonder why the camera was never really fixed through its multiple patches and updates, including a ton of DLC packs and a bunch of patch notes on bugs that the game makes you actually read when you first boot it up. The camera gets stuck in certain places, zooms in and out at really weird times, doesn't adjust if your character can't be seen on screen. It's just super janky, especially if you're using a character that can fly. Sometimes while fighting, you'll just disappear and the camera will look at things that aren't you or relevant at all for no real reason. You are given some manual control, which the old games had as well, but even with adjusting on the fly for yourself, the game's zoom never seems to be able to keep up with the relevant action on screen in any type of smooth way. A game with a good camera is a game where you never have to think about what the camera's doing. Maybe I'm being harsh, but it ruined what should have been a really fun experience for me. Ultimate Alliance 3 tells the story of our heroes in a race against Thanos and his minions, the Black Order, to find and collect all of the Infinity Stones. This isn't the same story from the movies, but the character depictions are heavily influenced by their movie counterparts. And this isn't a bad thing. Most of them are pretty great, and it makes total sense to do things this way when you release a superhero team-up game in 2019, after all those crazy movies had come out. In contrast to the first two games, the base fighting game mechanics of the game are much better. I felt like I had a little bit more freedom in what I wanted to do. I wasn't stuck to one path to be the most effective in all the fights. There was a glaring omission in base abilities with the absence of the option to grab. With all the other improvements to flow and movement, being able to grab enemies would have put this game over the top for me fun-wise. I might have even been able to forgive some of the camera issues. Maybe. There are some very specific environmental items that you can pick up and use from time to time, but the first two games allowed you much more freedom, and the ability to grab an enemy is like beat 'em ups 101 on abilities. You just needed to be in there. Team up synergy bonuses, character supers, and the ability to move much better in and out of the air made the game feel much better to play than the first two. I think I ended up trying almost every character in the base game, and they all felt pretty unique for the most part. Some of them are built to be range fighters, some of them are rush down up close characters. You even get tank-like characters to absorb all the big damage while your other teammates go do work. It definitely felt like there was a lot more thought put into the design of the abilities and leveling systems that they had put into place. I didn't, however, enjoy the crazy crystal upgrades that they had. This felt like they had a really grand microtransaction plan, and then in the end they just kind of bailed on it but left all of those systems in place. You just didn't have to pay for them. The game also only levels up the characters that you are currently using. This is to force multiple playthroughs by design. You will very quickly be able to use some of the characters that you've unlocked if you leave them on the bench for too long and then try to tag them in later on in the game. The game does counter this by having you unlock new characters as you you play along. They start close to the level that you're at and reflect where you're at in the story. This is fine and works for the multiple playthrough style that the game is. I just wish it kind of told you that right off the hop. The first two games had shared experience across characters, so I assumed that it was the same here. The enemies get difficult quickly with the stun meter that they have implemented, so I wouldn't have switched around heroes so much in the early game and just concentrated on using one team right off the start. Then done a second playthrough with different characters and had the ability to like shuffle around a little bit more. There is also no auto level up option to set like in the first two games. You will have to go in manually and boost up all your character's ability levels, set all your crystals, and do this for each character and each ability each time that you level up. Some people will enjoy this. I personally didn't feel much difference when I leveled things up or when I started to equip larger crystals. It's like the game put in a whole bunch of busy things to try to do and look at to make it seem like there was a bunch of options in depth, but really overall the effect of everything combined didn't make me feel like any of my leveling decisions meant much at all in the long run. You will find and unlock things called infinity rifts throughout the game. These work as kind of mini challenges where you can unlock different materials and things needed to properly level up your characters. There are also different character skins and character unlocks that can be earned through playing these rifts. The game makes a big mistake in locking them all to a certain level. I didn't start attempting any of the rifts to the mid to late game, so I went into the first ones massively over leveled and just crushed everything. For me, being over leveled and just destroying everything like that isn't the most fun thing to do in these games. There are high and mid level rifts you unlock later on, but I just think a variable moving difficulty scale works a little bit better for these kinds of things, so you can enjoy each rift, not just the ones later on in the game. I wish Ultimate Alliance 3 was released on more than just a Nintendo Switch. This is a game that would have benefited from more powerful hardware. There are slowdowns and frame rate issues when a lot of things start happening on the screen at the same time, especially during couch co-op. Not as detrimental to the gameplay as the camera system itself, but still something you don't want to see in a game that releases in 2019 and beyond. There is an online multiplayer option and local options if you have multiple Switches in the same room, which is pretty cool. I did not test any of these out, but I have to assume the camera was just straight garbage in these modes as well. Regardless of all the issues I did have with the camera, overall this was a fun game to play. The characters are done really well, the voice actors did a really good job, it's a pretty cool story with a lot of cool villains, and it was just a good time beating the crap out of all these evil bros. 3 happy potato faces out of 5. Another game with the potential to just be so much more than what it is. Held back by a horrible camera and being an exclusive to the Nintendo Switch. But a game worth checking out if you do have a Switch and if you can catch it on a sale. So with that, the Backlog Project rolls on. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind to yourselves and others that deserve it. We're on to the next one. So let's go. Wait, is that why they only put it on Switch? Because of the Switch thing where it goes... Oh my god. But the Black Order drops the ball of balls. Man, I need to get better at writing scripts.